I'm standing there and I'm squeezing an avocado, testing it for ripeness. And I hear this voice that's not entirely familiar say, "Alanna?" And I look up, and from across the produce, I see him. That guy from a history almost too long ago and too brief to remember. And I say, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And he says, "Oh, good, good." And he accepts this as an invitation to walk around the produce and to come stand right next to me and the avocados and the limes and the lemons. And he says, "So, are you back here now?" You see, I was gone for about 10 years. And this guy knew me in my early 20s. He knew me when I was touring with various theater companies, and in between those tours I would come back and we would meet up, and he knew me when I wasn't touring. I would be working one, sometimes two, waitressing jobs, because who doesn't love a cliche? And so we would hang out, and this was a time in my life that I guess I wouldn't exactly call stable. This was a time in my life where my motto was work hard, play harder. And I pretty much lived up to that motto. When I wasn't on tour, I was holding down those waitressing jobs. I was taking acting classes and dancing lessons and voice lessons and like trying to stay up on my craft. And on top of that, I also found time for an active social life, which at that time meant mostly staying up really late and drinking lots of tequila, too much tequila. And this is the context from which this man knows me, which is to say he doesn't really know me at all anymore. And I say to him, "Oh, yeah, we actually moved back here about 4 years ago, almost now. Actually, those two are mine." And I point across the entire produce section to my husband and my 1-year-old son. And my husband has a bunch of greenery in his hand, and he's saying, "Parsley, parsley," to my 1-year-old before he throws it in the grocery cart. And I see this look that happens on this guy's face, and I can't exactly place it. And then he says, "So Alanna Reeves finally settled down, huh? Never thought I'd see that day." Yep, guess so. And we continue to make this like awkward small talk, and as the small talk proceeds, I realize that while he doesn't really know me anymore, I'm pretty sure that I still know him. It doesn't seem that much has changed in the past 10 years for this guy. And we don't really have anything in common anymore, and our lives are in very different phases right now. And so we find a way to like quasi-gracefully excuse ourselves from this conversation. We go back to our regular lives. And I join my husband back at the grocery cart, and my husband says, "Who is that guy?" And I was like, "An apparition from a former life." And my husband says, in a way that's more like a chuckle than like a question or a retort, so we just leave it at that and we move on. The thing is, this is like this silly little interaction that has happened in my day, and I cannot shake it. Because for most of my life, I have abhorred the notion of settling down. To settle down meant to let go of something. It meant that I was getting less than what I wanted, and it meant compromising, but like in the worst kind of way. And I keep thinking about this and thinking about this throughout the day, and then I recall this moment from my 20s when I went to this dinner party. One of my really best girlfriends, her older sister was hosting this dinner party, and we were invited to it, so we went. Because like, yay, free food, free wine, okay, I'm there. So we're sitting there, and as this party's going on, I'm feeling really super out of place. And I get back to my friend's apartment at the end of the night, and I like flop onto the futon, because we didn't have couches, and I say, oh my God, never let me be so boring that I sit around and talk about mortgages at a party. And my friend laughs and she says, right? Or like have nothing to talk about except my kids. Like, does anybody actually care about your kid getting on a select soccer team? No, they don't. Except now, I kind of do. You see, I'm a parent now, and I have these other parent friends, and I don't really survive well without being able to swap these kinds of stories with them, right? So when my friend's kid makes the select soccer team for the first time, I'm actually really excited about it. And I listen to her and I sympathize when she's like, I don't know, do I have him in too many like structured activities? Is he getting enough unstructured play? I'm like, I don't know, I struggle with that too, right? So these are the things I talk about now, and I talk about student loan debt and whether or not I'm ever gonna get mine paid off before like I send my kid to college. And I talk about, oh gosh, we have like the crappiest insurance, and thank God my kid's healthy, but what if he wasn't? And now I'm a homeowner, so I talk about mortgages. I am the thing that I promised myself and that I made my best friend promise me that I would never become. So I'm still thinking about this, and it's the end of the day, and I'm shuffling through my feelings about this whole settling down thing. And it's like 9:10, it's dark, and I realize I haven't put the ducks and the chickens away. I've managed to get my child to sleep and like have a moment of peace to myself, and now I have to go deal with these birds that I insisted on getting because they'll be so fun. So I like peel myself off of the couch and I put on my shoes, and my dog like knows the routine, so she gets out of her little doggy bed and she stretches back into downward dog, and she's being so cute and yawning. And so we amble toward the front door and we step out into the night. And as I'm walking down the hill, I notice that there's a society of crickets serenading me, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, this isn't like as bad as it might have been. So we're walking down the hill and my dog's following me, and I put the birds away and I lock their doors, and I can hear them mumbling and peeping to each other and settling in for the night, and I can hear one of them ruffling her feathers, and I'm not as grumpy as I once was. And then I notice that it's really bright outside, and I look up and the moon is big and round, and I'm staring at it, and I realize that it has a halo around it, and I'm admiring it. And the longer I stand there, and the longer I stand still and just stare at this moon, I realize that I can see actually 3 distinct rings in this halo around the moon. And I'm thinking, wow, how lovely. And then a bat flies by and is like scooping up all the mosquitoes, and I'm like, yeah, get the mosquitoes, this is awesome. And my dog lays down next to me, and we just pause for a minute in the night. And all of a sudden, I am just overwhelmed by this sense of peace and feeling really grounded and really present and here and now. And I'm having this like spiritual awakening in my backyard. And all of a sudden, I realize this is what it means to be settled. This is settled down, this sense of calm, this sense of peace, being able to notice the minutia that if I had not been settled, if I had been chaotic, if I had been running and going from one thing into another and being worried about what was next or what was behind and not being right here, I don't get all of the richness that is existing in front of me. And so there, in my backyard, in Plattsmouth, Nebraska, where I swore I would never be again, I'm having this really magical moment. And I realize that I have a very different relationship to the notion of being settled down. And this word that I once abhorred was actually just a word that I misunderstood. And I find that I'm actually really in love with being settled down. Thank you.